Americans regret decision to move to small towns. Well, what do you know? Welcome to our retire early lifestyle, where we moved back to small town USA after living abroad for 13 years.
This is the memorable moment. We're leaving. We're leaving. We packed. We gone, man.
We traveled a good part of the United States 35 years ago in our 30-foot holiday Rambler with 3 small children in tow. It worked out well for us because we homeschooled our 3 sons along the way. We were full-time nomads, traveling most of the states and beaches. Why we chose small town South is mainly because of personal preference. We didn't move to a small town just now. We lived in a smallish town before we moved abroad 13 years ago, so it's what we prefer. One of the most beautiful states, in our opinion, is California, and it's changed drastically in the last 40 years. It's not the same. We all know the changes, so no need to reiterate in this video. But Portland, Oregon also used to be a favorite state for us 40 years ago, and it totally transformed itself from what it used to be. Did it transform in a good way or bad way? You be the judge. Even so, you can still find charming, small to medium-sized, laid-back towns in both California and Oregon. You just have to do the investigation to locate the diamond in the rough. Or as one of our viewers called it, little hidden gem. But we still wouldn't live in California or Oregon on a permanent basis. What about you? Some Americans wouldn't leave these states because it's their home and they're comfortable and familiar with it. Everyone has their reasons for staying or leaving. We say live and let live. Before we bought our cheap old house, we investigated a lot of the mid-sized towns in the U.S. and honed down our criteria based on needs and wants. We then researched the housing market, and when a house came up in the price range we were willing to pay, we bought it. So that's how that works. You have to have more towns in your sights than just a few, which means doing the research on first the states you have interest in, and then the towns. The first step in finding an ideal fit for you is doing the investigation. For example, if state policies are important to you, then you would want to investigate the administration in that state to see what their agendas are concerning your particular situation or concern. We know that most people don't do this type of investigation when they go abroad, and so it's most likely they probably won't do it at home either. It's follow the crowd and trend psychology, and is why people end up regretting their decisions. But thorough investigation is the most important factor in deciding where to move. Not watching videos on best towns or cheapest towns in the USA. We've also seen people move far away from their home state to a new state based only on what that state's governor said. Now, there's a lot of that in the world. There's what people say, and then there's what people do, including governors. That is to say, Americans are still not doing their research for the most part and just going on hearsay. Each state in the United States has different policies and agendas. Some of them are similar, but not the same, usually. Let's say you're a family with 2 small children and you want to homeschool your children. You wouldn't want to move to a state that is indifferent to homeschooling, or God forbid, hostile to it like Pennsylvania and others, because you will become a target later on down the road. This is exactly why no one should go by just hearsay on which state in the USA is best, greatest, best place for children, best place for retirees. It's all up to personal preference and personal circumstances and issues. If you want to be happy in life, the choices you make will either provide you with what you need for your happiness or it won't. But I'll tell you this, Other people's choices will not be your choices. We've been sharing this reality for 13 years when we saw all the hypey videos about best country, best this, best that, best retirement, best living. Phooey. We're reading now that during the post-2020 thing, many folks who skedaddled out of the big cities into smaller and mid-sized towns are now regretting their decision. They're unhappy with their new town. They aren't happy because they didn't do their homework. It really all comes down to knowing what you want and what you really need in a particular area. What is important to you? You have to know yourself pretty well to choose the best fit for you and your circumstances. And then you must do the deep digging, also known as due diligence or research. We do not live in times where you can skip this step and not have consequences later. Just look at the millions of quiet, quitting folks that are quitting living abroad, retiring abroad, and coming back home to the US of A. We know this firsthand when thousands of expats each year move abroad to a best named country or cheapest named country for that year, only to regret their decision. That's right, if you didn't know, most expats come back home after a year or two. Some people stay a little bit longer. They were lured by the best place to live narrative. Who says it's the best place? It may be someone's best place to live, but not yours, and it's not mine. Now we're seeing this again, but this time closer to home. Apparently cheaper and best just isn't enough to make some of the people stay. Some folks, not all, are leaving the small towns they moved to and going back home or moving to a bigger city. So here's the goose that laid the golden egg. No one state or no one town is best place to live because quality of life, standard of living, lifestyle, personal preferences, needs and wants and circumstances are different for each person, couple, or family. You would make a town the best place to live for you by finding one that fits into your lifestyle and circumstances. Do you see how that works? For instance, if your doctor says that living in drier weather is best for your upper respiratory health, you wouldn't move to the south, even though it's less expensive. Climate means everything for some people. You're probably best moving to a southwestern state like Arizona, New Mexico, or northern Texas. Some real estate has skyrocketed in those areas, but what's more important, your health or your money? You've heard the old worn-out saying, health is wealth. Okay then. So the bottom line is, if you want to be comfortable and live a life with good health and well-being, listen to your concerns by taking the first step in finding your ideal state to live according to your situation and concerns. Then investigate the towns. Make a list of what is important to you. Here is some examples of what a criteria might look like. This is just an example. Separate your needs and preferences. Needs might be climate, crime rates, education. Now we think it's best to homeschool this day and age, but we're not telling anyone what to do. Homeschooling laws, and you might want to look at the state policies. Be diligent and find out if your needs fit with the state's policies. Jobs. If you work remotely, you open up an endless array of areas to live in the USA. And then you have preferences. Things to do, lakes, rivers, parks, water parks, beaches, mountains, hiking, movie theaters. Remember, it's what you prefer. What do you like? shopping services. Some people like a lot of shopping, while others only need a farmer's market and a small town hardware store. Restaurants. Some Americans like to eat out a couple times a week. Are there enough restaurants so you won't get bored with the same few restaurants? You should know this stuff in advance of moving there. Some Americans enjoy staying home and just slapping some burgers or a steak on the barbecue. It's all about personal preferences. Hospitals. Having a good-sized hospital with different medical departments available is what some people prefer and need, while other folks, this might be on the bottom of the list. This is why it's called personal preference. There might be more things you will need to add to your list. For us, we needed to have a big hardware store because this old house is in need of mucho repairs. But if you're buying a newer house, hardware stores may not mean anything to you. So add whatever you need to your list according to your needs and wants, circumstances, and personal preference. Then do your investigation. Don't be afraid to search online, ask people in forums, but remember, you always want to get second and sometimes third opinions on the things that are really important to you. Your best town for you is out there. You just have to find it and then enjoy your life healthy, happy, and content. Well, that's it for this video. We hope you enjoyed the information today. Be safe, take care, and bye-bye.